Hi everyone. Now I'm recording it. So thanks to Dr. Bharathi Raju for giving her time today. My name is Ramki, and this is Weekend Wellness series number 10. And Dr. Bharathi Raju is from St. Louis, Missouri, and she is currently practicing in a private practice in South County, St. Louis, Missouri. And her specialty is endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism management, and she has got her MBBS degree from Stanley Medical College in Chennai, and she has done her internship in Flushing, New York, and a residency in Flushing, New York, and followed by fellowship in endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism in Washington University School of Medicine, St. Louis, Missouri. And she is also a consulting physician at St. Anthony's Physician Organization, and she has done multiple research, and there are about at least, if I can say, 5 or 6 that she has mentioned. So very happy to have her presentation today. So once again, all these presentations and recordings will be posted on Facebook under Weekend Wellness Program. This is a free event. Please promote it with your friends. We are trying to make use of this COVID-19 isolation time. Thanks to all these physicians and all people who are presenting. It is just an educational session. So Dr. Bharati, you're on.
Thanks, Ramki. I would like to thank first Vasu and Ramki for giving me this opportunity. This is not um, very common for me. Every time we give a presentation, it's usually before a live audience. So I can't see whether you guys get bored, you like it or not like it. So I'm going to go with what I want to say. So at the end of the presentation, if you have time, if there is questions, if I can answer, I will. Certainly, nutrition is not my expertise. So whatever I am telling you today is what I have learned over the years, in the 10 to 15 years. So my view about food itself has evolved. It's not like I had a certain view 10, 20 years ago. Today, the view about food that I have is a lot more scientific, and it's still evolving. So this is just, I'm going to share my thoughts. Whatever I have learned, I'm going to share that. Some of you, if you have already heard that, and if you think some of your beliefs is contradictory, most of it is what I have gathered from the published papers, and that's what I'm going to share. So if there is anything contradicting, we can talk, we can find out, and it's like a conversation. So many times when we talk about nutrition, right, I assume people around me, obviously they know, and it was eye-opening when my husband or my daughter comes and asks question, what do I eat now, or is this healthy, or things like that. So today's presentation is based on what I have seen common mistakes people do, or things like COVID time, where people think, okay, I'm eating garlic for next 2 days, or I'm going to put turmeric for next 3 days, and I'm going to add pepper to my thing, and I'm going to drink this liquid, that liquid, how it's going to affect my immune system. So those are the views that actually bothers me when I see people saying it. So my talk is going to, it was structured in such a way that food is not something that you take it very easily. You have to take it seriously, is what is going to be. So many times people come and ask, what do I eat now? Meaning, when in my practice, majority of the patients that I see are patients with diabetes. So their first question is, okay, what do I eat, doctor? It's not an easy answer. You will know that why it is at the end of this presentation. So, and my target audience, even though majority, many of you are adults who are sitting here, my target audience is young adults and children, because that is where we need to make the real changes. Whatever we have done, what we did it. So whatever information that you get, and if you think it's new and something that you haven't heard about, it will be nice if you can pass it on to your kids. The main way that you can do is by your eating habits. How you change your eating habits is how the kids are going to learn. They may not know why we are eating what we are eating, but at least it will create a habit in them that will be long lasting good habits. So now health being healthy means different things. I actually, before I presented, I asked many of my friends and my family, what does it mean? So it means differently for different people. I'm going to go with what it means to me. Basically, physical and mental well-being. And when we say that, majority of them, we associate physical well-being to food and then directly to weight. Weight is only one portion of your well-being. It doesn't say it all. So it's very common for you to see that people who eat very healthy still get bad diseases, and people who eat very badly, they still live well till into their 80s and 90s, and they die without any issues. So it's not that simple. So weight, you should not, you should take weight as one parameter that tells you how's your weight, I mean how's your health, but it doesn't tell you all the story. So and another thing when we talk about food is too much stress we put on food and quantity. So one thing I can tell in this presentation today, there is not even a single slide that talks about calories. So there is no calorie at all. So this full presentation is going to be about the quality of the food that you're going to eat. It has nothing to do with quantity matters, but for this purposes, for this practice presentation, we are not going to talk about quantity at all. So when we think about food, there are a lot of things what we put in our mouth. There are a lot of things that matters. So where does how do we grow the fruit, and what do we grow? Basically seeds. Where I'm getting to is the genetic modified seeds. So it doesn't matter even if you grow your own food in your backyard. Is it really healthy? We don't know. So how do we store it? How do we transport it? How do we prepare? How do we cook? When do we eat? What do we eat? How much do we eat? What affects our food processing in our body? And ultimately, after all this, does the food does what it's supposed to do in our body? That is the $1,000,000 question. Nobody knows. And there are so many modifying factors before the food comes to us. The scientists who prepares all this, the manufacturers, distributors, shopkeepers, policymakers, educators, people like me who educate. Whatever I say, sometimes it may be right. It is my interpretation of whatever the research that I did in the past 2 weeks. So it may not be the exact science what the scientist was trying to write in those papers. I might have interpreted it wrong. So anytime you listen to any information, I would like you to be educated consumer. Before you read an information about food, and before we share it on the social media, or we learn from the social media, and before we apply it into our lifestyle, think about it. That is what this talk is going to be making you. So you have to be a very informed consumer is where I'm getting to. So this terminology is for public. Basically, we talk a lot about when it is food, we talk about metabolism, we talk about antioxidants, inflammation, immunity, DNA. So what do these terms actually mean? Metabolism means your body runs, your heart functions, your lung functions, your gut does its stuff, whatever it does, your normal chemical processes that happens in your body, that is what is called metabolism. A lot of things affect it, but for common purposes, that's all what it is. Or however your body functions, that's what is metabolism is. Antioxidants, when these chemical reactions happen, your body produces some unwanted stuff. Let's say waste products. Those waste products can affect your body, and it can cause cancers, heart disease, you name it. It can ask whatever. So there are when we say antioxidants, that's what it means. So the food or anything that we use as an antioxidant is supposed to protect you from those waste products. Next thing is inflammation, anti-inflammatory. So that is another thing that we hear a lot when we do food. Inflammation, what does mean is that, so when we hurt your ankle or when you hurt something, you have always seen there is a swelling, there is pain, there is redness. So the way the body fixes whatever hurtful substance, whatever is hurting you, that is called inflammation. So when there is an injury in any part of your body, basically body creates some reactions, and those reaction is called inflammation. Immunity is how your body protects you from any substance that is going to cause harm to your body. That's what's called immunity. DNA is basically a building block of us. We are all made of DNA. So these are some common terminology which I use in my presentation for you to know what that actually means. So now gut, this is a picture that we have heard, we have seen. in our high school biology class. So the when I say gut, it basically what it means is the small intestine, large intestine, anything to do with your food. So as soon as you put your food inside, when it comes out, the entire system is called the gut. And gut is one of the largest immune system in the body. So at this COVID time, what people were thinking is when they eat some certain food, their immune system can get better in a short period of time, and that is going to help them protect from COVID. It's possible, it can, but one thing what people don't realize is the ones that who are dying, they are dying from overreacting immune system. So they call it's called um, cytokine storm is what the terminology that scientists are using or the doctors are using for the people who are dying. Cytokine storm is what it is that when the body's inflammation, like I told you, any injury that happens, the way the body fixes it. So one of these anti-inflammatory markers become too much and it attacks your body all over completely, and that is how people die. That is one of the ways that they die. So immune system is not something that you can play around with. And it's a long-term thing. In the short term, right now we can't even recommend people should take anything to boost your immunity, maintain your immunity, or to reduce your immunity. We don't know what is the answer. So it's very complicated, and gut is one of the largest immune system that we have, and that is why gut becomes important. And one of the organs, if you look at this picture or any medical picture, there is an organ that we miss, we don't talk about, and that is an evolving science. And that is what the next few slides of my talk is going to be, which is called the gut microbiome. Gut microbiome, the word looks fancy, but it's basically the bacteria or any organisms that lives inside your gut, into your digestive system. That's what's called gut microbiome. There are about more than trillion, 100 trillion or a lot of organisms in there, 1,000 more species, and they have a lot more genes compared to humans. The beauty about it is it's unique. It's unique like our faces. So it's my gut microbiome can be completely different from my family's gut microbiome, even though we eat the same thing. And it's responsible for our overall health. You will understand that as we go. And it's inheritable. So that is what is fascinating to me. What it is that what we eat now and how you affect your gut microbiome, you can actually transfer it to your kids and for that matter to your grandkids. There was an interesting fact that I studied. They studied people who are dying early in Sweden and found out that all those people who have died, their grandparents was suffering from malnutrition during the famine period in that country. I think it is Sweden. So it is fancy, and that information is something new that I didn't realize it. So that is why it's important for the kids and young children who are, I mean, young adults who are in their reproductive time to know about food and eating healthy. It's not like, okay, I'm young, anything, I can do whatever I want and I can fix my diet in future. It's important that food plays a major role in their health from the beginning, from the time that they're born and till they die. And it's easily modifiable by food. And that is the good thing about it. This is one thing that we can easily change. So what does it do? A lot of things, the microbiome, metabolic functions. What it does is that when you eat your food, depending on what food you eat, that food is metabolized by your body, and depending on what nutrients reaches the bacteria, they actually decide how that nutrients has to be utilized by your body. So 10% of your body's energy is produced by these microbiomes, and it tells the body how it's supposed to utilize the nutrients. Structural functions, basically your gut lining. People who have ulcers, people who have ulcerative colitis, people who have gut-related diseases, it is because of the microbiome, because it maintains the protective layer in your gut. The next important thing at this time of COVID is the protective functions, what it does. So when a person is born and when they develop, seamless microbiome plays a major role in how your immune system is developing and functioning and evolving throughout your adult life. This is to put it in short, and it does lot more um, functions which they relate to pretty much from head to toe, all your body functions, from your brain functions, lung functions, heart functions, everything is controlled or looks like it starts from the microbiome. That is why it's very important. So it helps in your overall health. So this slide on the left side, what it shows is that in the stomach, duodenum, this is the gut. Let me see if you guys can see my arrow. Yeah, there you go. So these are the bacteria they have listed here, but there is a lot more, of course, like I said. So depending on where your gut is, whether it's a stomach or small intestine or the large intestine, the microbiome that is there changes. And this is easily affected by your diet. And the numbers, the pH, your general health, all these affects the microbiome in these gut. And then the next thing is the factors. Even though there are so many factors that's listed, exercise, stress, antibiotics, age, where you are from, one major factor that affects it beyond any other factors is the diet. So it starts even from how you were delivered, whether you were delivered from by C-section or whether you are delivered by vaginal delivery, and what your mother ate at that time, that matters. And then even though we do the right thing, how it's going to react in our body depends on our host genetics, where we are coming from, whether you are from geographical location, because whether you are from India or whether you're from United States, whether you lived there and you moved here, all that matters how your microbiome is going to react to your food. So it's not like very simple. And gut dysbiosis, this is the word that they use. What it is that the damage that we do to the microbiome by our diet, whatever, we are going to talk about diet in the later portion. So if we eat a bad diet, say it's a Western diet, let's pick the Western diet because that's what everybody says, right? So Western diet, when we eat the Western diet and Western diet becomes your day-to-day life, it's not like occasionally eating your donut. We are not talking about occasionally eating a donut or occasionally eating an ice cream. That's not when your way of living, everyday diet is a certain way. What it does is that it causes something called chronic inflammation. So your body, in your gut, it does an injury, a chronic injury. So your body sees it as though you have an injury all the time. So your body's immune system reacts accordingly, thinking that you are having some kind of injury in your gut, and it creates all these inflammatory markers. Those are the ones that causes all the diseases. So what they did was they compared the people who had this gut dysbiosis, where the body thinks that there is chronic injury there, and they compared the people, what happens as we get aged. So the diseases that we get with aging matched with the diseases that we get when we have this chronic inflammation. So pretty much they connected gut microbiome to obesity, diabetes, depression, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, bone disease, and there are some cancers that they connected it to, and there are some Western diseases like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. We see very rarely in Asian population, but irritable bowel disease. All these shows that the patients has it started because we have disturbed gut microbiome. So another beauty is that, so in this slide, this is a technical slide, it's a technical research study, but the thing is, basically this is a normal gut and this is a damaged gut. So you have some bacteria that is there that shouldn't be there, whether it's because of diet, environment, it doesn't matter. There are so many factors that affects it. So something that caused this damage to your gut lining, and it causes a certain disease. So what they did was, they took that microbiome from those people or from that particular person and gave it to the mice, and they were able to reproduce the disease in the mice. So what that is fascinating is that these gut microbiomes, it's actually transferable, and it's reproducible, and it's inheritable. And how does it apply to humans is that another fascinating thing. What they did was not only for creating a disease, now they are testing this on curing diseases. So there is something called Clostridium difficile with a C. diff infection. So there is a certain infection that happens in the gut, and that causes chronic diarrhea. You cannot fix it with anything. So what they do is that they transfer microbiome from a healthy person into this diseased person, and that fixes it. Another thing they see is that it does the same thing to cure obesity in mice. They haven't done that in human studies, but in mice studies they are doing it. And there are some eating disorders when the young kids, young adults who have eating disorders like anorexia, they have actually transferred the microbiome from the healthy person into this anorexic person, and they were able to fix that person's disease. So this is an evolving science. The more and more we are going to see this, and more you're going to see on food labels, it's gut friendly. So now it was heart friendly, lung friendly. Now they are going to bring pretty soon gut friendly, and that's what they mean, basically to change your microbiome. So food and microbiome. So how does food affects microbiome? So depending on the kind of food you eat, it promotes the good bacteria to grow. There are bad bacteria too. So when the good bacteria grow, bad bacteria obviously won't. So it's a competitive environment. So if you eat the right food, the good bacteria will grow, and the variety of the bacteria, the more diverse your bacteria is, the more protective it is for you. So the food can affect it directly. Next thing is indirect effect. Indirect effect is through the microbiome. Through the microbiome, it can affect the host metabolism, the metabolism of us and our immune system in the gut. It can change. There is a lot more cell reactions happen. I didn't go into those. So for our purposes, it helps the bacteria to grow, and the bacteria in turn helps the host metabolism and immune systems. So food. So what food? Now we come to food. When you talk about food, there is about composition of the food, macronutrients and micronutrients. I'll get into the macronutrients and micronutrients in the next few slides. And then whether it's animal-based diet or plant-based diet. And then whether we are in urban setting or rural setting. Urban setting and rural setting is, in this practical purposes, it's not. If you are living in a city and still following the good diet, then urban and rural setting doesn't matter. But here, urban setting means westernized diet. So now in villages or in rural setting, also Western diet, this is, I'm talking about India. So the urban food has gone in, basically the chips, the bakery items, all that have gone into the villages. So urban setting, rural setting, here, what it means is the kind of diet you eat is what it means. And the quality of, quantity of the food, of course, how much you eat and how much of what you eat. And sleep cycle. When do you eat it? Are you eating it in the nighttime? Or are you eating it in the daytime? It is connected to our circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is at certain time, based on sunlight, your body produces certain hormones. So your hormones are highest in the morning and it's lowest in the evening. And all your metabolic functions, all your functions in your body is connected to that circadian rhythms. So when you eat matters, and that changes your microbiome. And duration. Are you eating good food just for 1 week so you can fit into an outfit, or you are doing it throughout your life? That actually matters. So what they have found in research is that even 1 day of changing your diet changes your microbiome in a reproducible way. But whether that 1 day changing your microbiome, does it really do good things in your body? That nobody knows. So these are short-term studies where they do give certain food to certain people and then measure their microbiome and see, does the microbiome change? Yes, it changes, but does it really does the good things that we expect? That we don't know, and that further research is needed on that. And then the bacterial composition of the consumed diet. And this, when I read this, it was fascinating for me. Basically, what it was, in Japan, people eat seaweed. So what happens is that the seaweed has some microbiome organisms. So when you keep eating that, looks like it changes your gut microbiome. So that way it changes your digestive enzymes, and it makes Japanese gut will be able to digest things more easily, is what it means. So it affects how basically in evolution too. So over a period of time, Japanese will be able to digest their seaweeds much more easier than any other ethnic groups. Genetic makeup, of course, I talked about. And food label, let's see, 5-10 minutes. So when you look at the food label, there is a lot of things there. What I want you to pay attention is total fat, carbohydrates, and the protein, and the grams that is next to it. Okay, whatever is reported in the total fat, most of the time, if the fat is small, shorter, saturated fat or trans fat, it's bad. And in total carbohydrates, everything that's reported here is already added in that grams. And the protein, and of course minerals, vitamins, and additives, all that you need to pay attention to. So carbohydrates. So the next question is carbs good? Is carbs good? Bad? It depends actually. Why are you eating it? I mean, it is a loaded question. So it depends what carbs you are eating, when are you eating, what mood you are in. Is it a social eating or it is like an essential eating? Um, are you depressed? Are you happy? All that affects your eating habits. And then the important thing is that scientifically what you need to know is digestible fat and digestible carbs and non-digestible carbs. Glycemic index. How glycemic index is a term that we use when you eat a carb, how quickly your blood sugar goes up is what glycemic index is. The quicker it goes, the bad the food is the general understanding. So in the food, in carbohydrates, there are complicated carbs, there are simple carbs. So all these carbohydrates are digestible carbohydrates. So whether they are good or bad depends on how much fiber you have in those foods. So you cannot take one food and say, okay, it has only bad things in it. It's a combination. So we have all of this. Sometimes when you mix and match and make a food, you're going to have all of this there. So this, I have put it in here to say that these are all digestible carbohydrates. And the artificial sweeteners, that is the biggest problem I see. So artificial sweeteners affect your microbiome in a negative way. So that is not good. So sugar and artificial sweetener, if you pick, I don't think there is any better way of doing it. I usually recommend my patients to do straight sugar. The reason is that the straight sugar, whatever it does, we actually know. Sweeteners, what it does, we actually don't know, because it does so many things to the microbiome and it affects your metabolism and causes cancer too. So we don't know what it does. So I do not recommend it. And the next one, so these are all digestible carbohydrates. Now we are going to talk about non-digestible carbohydrates. So those are the ones that has fiber in it. So any food that has fiber in it, it doesn't matter, soluble, non-soluble, we don't have to go into it. If you have fiber, and what that fiber does is that fiber is the food for these microbiome. So it helps your diversity of your microbiome. So it makes your microbiome grow well, and the kind of food that you eat makes these microbiome enlarge and function the right way, and it creates something called fatty acids, and those fatty acids affect your immune system and your other functions in the body in turn. So the bottom line, foods with high fibers, that is the reason why this is not something new for you. It basically tells you there is a reason why we say it. So food with high fibers, fermentable fibers, particularly fermentable fibers, are good food. That is the food that these microbiome thrive on. So if you get your various fibers from various foods, that is going to develop your microbiome, good microbiome. And next comes our food. Basically, people who are eating rice. This is for people who are eating rice as their major food. Compared to rice, these grains, they have a lot more fiber and lot more protein, and they don't get digested easily. So what happens is that when you eat a food, how it affects your microbiome depends. If you digest your food in your stomach, or some of the food reaches your large intestine. So some of these foods that has fiber in it, millet food, they actually reach your large intestine and they provide the food for your microbiome. If you eat simple rice, it gets digested right in your stomach. So the reason why we recommend people to eat the millet food or brown rice is to avoid getting digested early in your gut. Ramki, we are at 30 minutes. Should I stop? I have another 10 more minutes.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
Let's go for it. Yeah. Good information. Go for it, Doc.
So this basically tells you what your Western diet does and what your Indian food does. We get best of the both worlds because we eat both Western diet and our Indian diet. So it's not very uncommon. Many of you would have seen that Indians are developing diabetes and they call something called metabolic syndrome. And if you really talk to your friends, many of them will say, my doctor said I have high triglycerides, I have low HDL, I have high glucose, I have high blood pressure. Majority of this, we started getting it after we started eating polished, white, refined rice. The other argument I see from India is that, oh, people have been eating rice since earlier days, but the rice that they were eating is different from the rice that we are eating now. So that is the key, basically. So the rice that our ancestors in 1920s or 1800s, what they ate was actually hand-pound rice. And they sometimes they didn't even eat rice until it's a festival time. So rice used to be a festival diet and it became a everyday diet only in the 1960s. So if you look at statistics graphs, the rice consumption of polished rice started going up from 1960s and our diseases started going up around the same time. And these metabolic disease that you see at the bottom, this can in turn causes heart disease too. So you cannot say, okay, I get this. It's all interrelated. People who have moved from India to other foreign countries, we basically get exposed to both of these diets. So it's very important that we need to restrict what we eat and how we eat. Protein, animal protein and plant protein. So animal protein seems to do the bad reaction with the microbiome compared to the plant protein. What it does is that it depends on also what kind of animal protein you eat. The more red meats or the more processed your meat is from where the meat is created from the farm till on your table, if it takes longer, the more processed it is, the bad it is. Plant protein, it's good, but it's incomplete. So it's like when you eat dal alone, dal doesn't have some important amino acids compared to rice. So we combine rice and dal so that it will be complementary. So plant protein is somewhat incomplete, animal protein is complete, but still animal protein seems to cause more microbiome damage for you compared to the plant protein. Another thing with protein is that it doesn't get digested in the earlier part of the gut, looks like. It stays till the later part of the gut, and the byproducts that you get from these red meats tend to cause cancers, seems like. So that is the reason it is asked to restrict it. So red meat, pure red meat, beef, pork, and lamb, they are the red meat. Processed red meat is anything pre-cooked, hot dog, sausage, bacon, beef jerky. I'm a vegetarian, so whoever eats it, they know how processed their meat is. So the less processed meat you eat, the better it is. Next comes the fat. So saturated fat and trans fat, usually if you get, they call it as hydrogenated oil. So if an oil is in the solid form, that means it's bad. So to bring it to the solid form, if it's solid at the room temperature, it's a bad, because it's inexpensive, it tastes good, and it has long shelf life. Many of the food industries use those. So you have to be careful. Of course, saturated fat and trans fat is bad for you. And unsaturated oil, and there are poly and monounsaturated oils. So there are many of them, canola, olive oil, and then some of them are for deep frying, the others are not. So you have to be careful what oils that you use. Coconut is an important thing. They keep talking about coconut is good, coconut is bad. What it is that many of the research that's being done about coconut is on Western population. For Western population, coconut is not their staple diet, even if you go a long time. But coconut is staple diet, or it's part and parcel of our diets in Asian countries. So what they have seen is in indigenous population, people who are from where they eat more natural food, from the farm to the table, where the time of transit time is smaller, in those populations, actually, coconut doesn't seem to cause any bad effects. So there is no heart disease, there is no cholesterol issues. But the same coconut, if you try to study it in the Western population, it seems to have adverse effects. So it depends what you eat with the coconut. So if the coconut is with the Western diet, highly processed food and stuff, it's bad for you. But if the coconut is with usually natural diet, then looks like it doesn't have any issues. So when you study about coconut research or any papers or anything that you see online, it's important to know where that study is coming from and whom they did it. Majority of the studies that we see online is done on Western diet. That's why you won't see much information on Asian population, because we don't have that much research on that side. And micronutrients. Somebody was asking when we were preparing this, does it really help? They do. There are many micronutrients in these spices and things that we use. Turmeric particularly, it has this anti-inflammatory, antioxidative properties. They seem to say it has all of it. Pepper. And can I take it all of this in a pill? No, you can't, because turmeric, if you take it as a pill, it has absorption issues. You can't do the same thing. So it has to come in a natural way. It has to be added to the food. And preservatives, you name it, it's there. It's all bad. So, and particularly you need to be careful about added sugars. What do they put in? How do that? If something is tasting good, most likely, and it's on a shelf, most likely it's bad. So to preserve your gut microbiome, red and processed meat has to be less, preservatives, simple sugars, basically the Western lifestyle. Refined grains has to be less. Lack of fiber is what is causing it. So when you eat these diet, it alters your gut microbiome, and then that in turn alters your metabolism or immune system, and that in turn causes you long-term diseases. So any food that you eat, it matters whether it's carbohydrate, protein, or fat, and where it's getting digested. If it's carbohydrate, is it really getting digested in the upper gut? If it is, then it is bad. It has to go to the large intestine. If it is fat or protein, the animal fat, animal diet, animal protein, if it is getting digested in the large intestine, it is bad. So it really depends what you're eating. So this is something fascinating that I saw when I was doing the research. So they have created a periodic table for microbiome. It's nothing new. It's all fruits, vegetables, legumes, nut. You can see the coconut is right there. What caught my attention was the dirt. Dirt caught my attention. DT, that's for dirt. So that was interesting. I was like, as soon as I saw this periodic table, I was like, why dirt? So here there are a couple of things what they say with dirt. So what they found was house dust. People who are exposed to house dust seems to have less allergies compared to people who have not. So what that exposure to house dust have changed your microbiome and makes your immune system be not allergic to things, looks like. And the next thing that is the kids eating dirt in developing countries, that seems to be protective, looks like its immune system. And then another important thing that they did was how far we have come away from dirt is what it says. Pre-industrial time, soil, we grow food, and it goes to our stomach pretty short period of time, short transit time. And then again, back out, and then it goes back to the soil as fertilizer. But in industrial time, there are like pesticides involved in between. There is so much transit time between where it was grown and where is it eaten. And then the cycle is longer. So the connection between the dirt and the human being seems to get longer, and that seems to affect the microbiome. So again, so I don't want people to take it out of context. If our ancestors have eaten so good, if our earlier people who lived eaten so good, why did they die early? Why did so many kids died from infectious diseases like polio, measles, mumps? So you have to take it with a grain of salt. What industrialization have done to us? There are some good things. So we came up with vaccines that eliminated lots of diseases, but at the same time, we came up with food processing that gave us more non-communicable diseases. So there is good and bad in both times. So now we need to know what we can do. So the diet, basically, this triangle tells you the diet has direct activity to your microbiome and it has direct effects on your immunity. Microbiome in turn has direct effects on your immunity. So what do I eat? It's a loaded question. So what they are doing is that now there are more studies coming up with gut health and precision medicine. So before now, what if you go and ask the person who does research with the microbiome, what do I eat? They're going to say it depends. So it depends on your ancestors, it depends on your gene, it depends on where you're living, what you're doing, do you have stressful life? All that affects your microbiome. So the science is going towards, instead of what you're eating, it has to gather all those information and it has to be a personalized diet. So what I am eating, I cannot even recommend it to my daughter. So it has become that precise. Nutrition is that very well connected. It's nothing new. We have been saying food is good for you, you have to do it. It's just science has now told us why it's good. So what do I do? Can I do precision medicine at this time? No, not really. We cannot do precision medicine at this time. So all you can do is that eat high fiber diet. Many of these diets are called probiotic, prebiotic diets, which is like not refined grains, good grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, stress reduction, proper sleep, and consistent physical activity. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Bharathi. Excellent information. I think you kept to your word. You started on time. You wanted to finish on time, which is excellent. And I think once again, I mean, I'm going to post this on Facebook under Weekend Wellness. It's a lot of great information. I mean, who would have talked about dirt as one of the immune boosters for the kids and everything? And the other fascinating factor for me was like the inheritance. I mean, like you said, I think we need to be more careful, especially young people. What they are eating goes to their generation. So, I mean, those are something I've not heard. So we always think of changing our diet, Probably we should have told that to our grandparents. So, you know.
So you're all grandparents now.
No, I'm just kidding. So I think I'm going to leave it for questions. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask now. So I'm going to mute from my side.
Good evening, doctor. This is Shravan. I have a question on the probiotics.
Yes.
By taking that the pill of the probiotics, will it improve your guts?
It's, again, like I said, it's $1 million question. Instead, you can eat yogurt. It does the same thing.
Okay, but what about taking the capsule?
Capsule, we don't know. Those are all, again, these are all processed stuff. This is what the industry thinks it's good for you. Whether it's going to be good for you or not, it depends on how you feel. Most of the time, people take probiotics because to regulate their guts. That's why they eat their probiotics. So it depends how you feel. Whether it's going to have good effects on you, nobody can answer. It's a very specialized question. That is the reason why I stick with diet instead of pills. That way, I know I'm not putting anything bad into it. And another thing I forgot to mention is that, so there is one study where they thought it's going to be good for the mice, and they transferred some microbiome to this mice and thought that is going to create the good effects that they were expecting, but it didn't. So it is really very precise. Before you do anything with that others do, it really may not do the right thing. So we don't know. My answer is I don't know.
Okay. So one other question on the same subject. If we had to go with curd or traditional buttermilk, whatever,
Yes.
what milk that we should be using?
Oh, milk. There is a whole new article I read about milk for this. So milk, definitely organic milk is better, seems like. Even though they couldn't prove, let me tell for people what does organic milk or not organic milk does. Non-organic milk is basically for these cattle where they're getting the cow milk from. They give growth hormone. They give growth hormones and to increase the production and to make them be in that state, like milk giving state, to keep those cows in that state. That is the reason why they give the hormones. So no matter how much studies they do, they cannot prove these hormones are bad for you. But another thing is, many of these research studies are restricted, meaning before even this milk is being sold and things like that, they have lot of contracts, they have lot of restrictions that industry researchers cannot randomly go and do a study on these foods. So organic milk is better, and depending on what is your weight and what is your health condition, yes, you have to restrict your fats. So skim milk or 2% milk or 1% milk. If you don't have any health issues to begin with, you are a person who's active and who does everything right, whole milk is not bad. It depends if you're eating or drinking a gallon of whole milk a day or just a little bit. So any kind of milk, I prefer organic milk, because I still don't know the other one is good or not, because nobody can tell. And it definitely changes your microbiome. Milk does change your microbiome, and it changes the microbiome in a good way.
And there is another question from Mr. AGK Karunakaran. How does one figure out his or her diet to have a perfect gut?
You can't. You have to basically go with the norm. The more natural the food is, the quicker it comes to you from the farm, it's better. That is the only thing we can do at this time. Even though, because they have even changed the seeds by this GMO seeds, we don't even know what we are planting is the right thing. But one thing I can tell, I grow tomatoes in my home. I use the same seed I buy from the shop. So what my husband does is he hates me spending money on seeds because I waste it most of the time. So he says, okay, you don't have to do it. I'll do it my mother's way. So he actually takes the tomato and then just squeezes into the dirt, and we grow tomatoes like that. The tomato that I get from that is totally different from the tomato I eat from the shop. That much I can tell. So there is something different from the seed till it gets to my table. My tomato taste better and it looks good. So the quicker it comes to you from the farmer is better. So shopping in farmers market is better. So those are the things you have to do. The less processing, the less out of a package. If you can open and put your hand in and put it in your mouth, it's probably bad.
One question, a follow-on question, Bharathi. Are there any questionnaire? Because see, while that is a generic feedback you gave in terms of going from farm to table, yes. Right?
Yes.
But what about the genetic makeup, the region that you came from, the environment that you grew up in, or where your parents grew up or whatever? Do they have any impact on the?
They are doing studies. I saw one paper. I didn't have a chance to read that paper. They did research several hundred people, and that is one paper that I have to read. They do, but it is only on the research setting. It hasn't come to the common practice yet. So that is the way now it's heading. That is the way the nutrition in future is going to be heading. So in 50 years, if somebody comes and asks a doctor, what do I eat now? They're going to just put it in the thing and they'll have a personalized diet. Right now, we don't have that. And there are research studies going on where they do personalized diet and see how it affects your health in general.
Dr. Bharathi, next question is from Ram Gunela. Ram, you want to ask your question or you want me to read it out from the chat?
Yeah, if you could read it from the chat.
Okay. Dr. Bharathi, the question is, in childhood, we used to get advice from doctors and other elderly adults to take milk and eggs for good growth. Lately, we are hearing that dairy products specifically, should be avoided as it causes more allergies. Can you please clarify on this?
It's the same thing. Who it causes allergies? We never had those allergies back in India. If you think about it, when I grew up, this peanut allergy, lactose intolerance, these kind of things I have never heard of. Whether our children, meaning my kids and my grandkids, are going to get it or not, that is something that we have to see, that we have to wait and see. Eggs, I do avoid eggs for the first year of the child is born, because there is some data showing that exposing the infant's gut to eggs causes some allergies. So I start feeding my children only after 1 year with the egg. That was like, my daughter is 23, so that was 20 years ago. What has happened since then? I didn't actually research into egg, but egg and milk is not something you need to avoid. Those are the most complete protein that you can get. For vegetarians, that is how we are going to get our complete protein. So, if you eat egg, so no, I wouldn't suggest to avoid it.
Dr. Bharti, next question is from Dr. Naveen. Naveen, you want to ask your question, sir?
Hello, Dr. Bharti. That was a great presentation. So lately, have you heard these vegan studies? Like, people say, try to avoid any animal-based products which causes inflammation in your body, and they're showing some athletes going vegan and completely avoiding animal products and being so successful and healthy. So do you want to comment anything on that? Like, do you want to
this is where it comes, weight equal to healthy. So their only parameter that they measure is by weight. So that's what they say. So no, I don't agree with that. And I saw a study that they don't agree with that either. The only study that has proven to be very good for microbiomes are the Mediterranean diet, where there's a lot of fish, a lot of unsaturated oils and grains, unrefined grains, fruits and vegetables. So no, vegan diet is not one that at least the research shows. And personally, again, so it depends. A person who's going into vegan diet, are they going from like a red meat diet to a vegan diet? Yeah, then it's good for them, because they have been exposed their body with so much red meat and processed food and fast food. Then if they go into vegan diet, it's good for them. For a person, if you take myself, mine is a way more balanced diet, not much of Western diet, more of a balanced diet. But if I go into a vegan diet, no, it'll be probably negative for me.
Okay.
So it depends from where to where they go. So you don't hear the whole story. They will say, hey, I went into vegan diet, I feel great. To begin with, are you bad? How were you eating before? So if you are eating before, please, if you are eating healthy already with whatever I suggested, do not change your diet. No, vegan diet is not going to do any good for you.
That's great. Thank you.
And the next question, Dr. Bharati, I have 3 more that they have asked on the chat. Selva is asking, are there tests available to assess the current state of our gut flora or microbiome?
Yes, it is, but it's at the research setting. It's
Okay.
not in the clinical setting yet. The first time I heard about gut microbiome was 4 or 5 years ago when I attended a conference. I was so fascinated by it, because that is where they just presented one patient where they took the normal gut flora into the eating disorder person. I was amazed by it, and they were doing a lot more studies, human studies. Usually it's mice studies. Human studies, you need more permissions. So it was evolving, and it's an evolving science right now. No, we don't have a way to check our microbiome. No.
Okay. And then the next question is from AV. Which rice is better, brown, basmati, or white? Which one is less in sugar and carb?
Brown. So, with rice, there is no less than sugar and carb. Rice, if you take the nutrition, because of the time, I had too many things to say. I didn't spend much time on the food label. So when you look at rice, when you actually look at the food label, if you look at the white rice or basmati rice or brown rice, it will all have more or less, for 100 grams, it will have the same amount of carbohydrates. What matters is that the fiber content. If you look at the fiber content on white rice, it will be really less than 1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And brown rice, it will be the fiber content is higher. Another thing is that, of course, brown rice doesn't taste good. When you eat brown rice or when you eat white rice, you can compare it. The quantity you can eat, the amount of white rice that you can eat, you really can eat so much, a lot more compared to the brown rice. So if another portion that I didn't touch in the talk is that a food, if it curbs your appetite, if it curbs your hunger, then it's good. It's not by the quality of the food. So when you eat white rice and brown rice, you would see that when you eat brown rice, you are fuller sooner, and you will be able to, you won't feel hungry sooner. So brown rice is better because it has the fiber content. The more unprocessed the rice is, the better it is. Basmati rice, same thing. Some people say basmati rice is good. Some people say it's not good. We don't have enough data. Nobody does studies in these things because it's Asian population. Western people don't eat basmati rice that much. But that is the general. So if your rice, if you are able to eat a whole lot and it gets digested so fast, then it's going to make your sugar go up really high and you will end up with diabetes soon. And that is the whole reason why we have a lot more diabetes in India, because if you can see, when you walk around, Americans, or Western people, they are very big. They are very big in their structure and they are very big in their weight. But some of them, they don't have diabetes. They are fine. But Indians, you would see, oh, this person has diabetes, but they don't even have a weight issue. The reason is the quality of the food. It's not even the quantity. It's the kind of rice that we have been exposed since you are born. As far as I know, I have eaten white rice throughout my life until 1995 when I came to this country. When my husband had problems, high triglycerides, that's what made me move to brown rice. So brown rice is better. Make sure it has a lot more fiber in it. If you can't eat it, reduce the quantity you are exposed to it. The amount of white rice you eat should be as less as possible.
So 2 more questions. Before that, on the same topic of rice, what about quinoa?
Quinoa, same thing. Quinoa has more fiber and more protein.
Okay. Just to make sure, because a lot of people here, we all change to quinoa. So just to make sure.
Quinoa has a lot more fiber and protein. Again, they look at it. Basically, I haven't researched into quinoa, but quinoa, I have looked into it. I have had my family members, some of them use quinoa also. It has a lot more protein and a lot more fiber. So if you're able to eat quinoa less, your test with fiber is that, does it make you full? Does it make you stay longer without feeling hungry? Those are the things.
Got it. Okay. So the next question is from Vanaja. Is Indian style of yogurt good enough, or is probiotic yogurt better for you?
That is another stuff. So whenever it's funny how people wants to go to other cultures and whatever they eat, it's not. But if again, culture is important. Where you're coming from is important. Indian yogurt is fine because our makeup is from India. What our grandfathers have been exposed, our parents have been exposed are from India. So your Indian yogurt is good. If you compare other cultures, they will have, I think, kefir or something else, some other fermented product. Basically, these are all fermented products. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you eat. That's what you have to think about. Before you adopt other culture food, you need to think about, does it really need it? I don't think. We have plenty of good food in India. Okay, unless you love the taste of other cultures for health reasons, there's no reason to go to other culture. Our culture has enough food, enough good food, enough things. So in short, yogurt is good.
The next question is from Raj, St. Louis. What's your take on iodized salt?
Iodized salt, yes. That is another additives. So we have to be careful when we look at additives. The reason iodized salts were added is because when we didn't have those, people were getting thyroid disorders. It's a hormone problem. You get hormone problems. So iodized salt is, if you don't get iodine from the rest of most of them, this was introduced because in our developing world, in India and stuff, the people were not getting enough iodine. So that's why they added iodized salt. In my understanding, Western diet has plenty of iodine. So salt or iodized salt for us doesn't matter. It matters for people in India.
All right. And the next question, actually two more, one from Avi and one from Kirti. I think I missed Avi's somehow. How about if we extract starch from rice? Is it better to eat after extracting?
No. That is a common mistake people do. Yes, you get energy from the rice, but you also get important nutrients from the rice. The nutrients, all the zinc that we want to eat, or magnesium we want to eat, selenium we want to eat, iron we want to eat, calcium we want to eat. When you actually boil the rice and get rid of that, yes, you get rid of the carbohydrates, but you also get rid of all the nutrients, the vitamins, mainly B vitamins. Rice is a very good source of B vitamins. So no, and that is another thing with brown rice. With brown rice, you don't have to wash that much actually. 1 or 2 washings actually, the rice is good. White rice, you might have to wash many times before you do it. So that is one advantage with brown rice. No, I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay. And the next question is from Kirti. Kirti has like a lengthy question. So it's like a couple of questions in one question. So how to distinguish between thyroid problem and Hashimoto's autoimmune disorder? What is the difference between thyroid levels and Hashimoto's autoimmune disease? She's asking for her mom, as doctors only check thyroid hormone levels and suggest medication when levels are off. So she is wanting a clarification for her mom.
So autoimmune thyroid disease. So you get thyroid disease. One of the reasons why you get thyroid disease is autoimmune disease. There are many reasons why you can get thyroid disease. One of the major reasons why you get disease is autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease. What is autoimmune disease? Is that immunity, your immunity, if it fights against something outside, that is what it's supposed to do. Sometimes your immunity starts fighting your own body. That's how you get celiac disease, type 1 diabetes, thyroid disease, and many other diseases, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, things like that. So autoimmune disease, we don't usually check for on a normal people. We check it if you have a family history, and if you check the autoimmune disease, autoimmune antibodies, there is nothing you can do. As a doctor, I check antibody levels. One thing is, if a person is in the reproductive years, basically if they are going to become pregnant, it matters for the child. That is one time we check autoimmune disease, autoimmune blood test. Another reason why we do it is the goal. How much medication we give is a little bit different for people who have autoimmune disease and people who don't. And if you really have a family history, say for example, whoever asked this question, because a mother has autoimmune disease, so if she's going to go have her thyroid checked, it's always better to know if you have autoimmune disease or not. Or even if you have antibodies, just because somebody has that antibodies doesn't mean they're going to develop the disease, but it at least tells them they are at a higher risk to develop the disease. Again, it all connects back to the diet, of course. So yes, if they have a history, it's good. And if they are not controlled with the current medication, they wanted to know really, yeah, you can. But checking the antibodies is not going to add any more information to her mother's health. They would have already treated. The treatment is the same, whether you have autoimmune disease or you have other diseases, other reasons why you get the thyroid disease, the treatment is the same. So that may be the reason why her mother's doctor didn't check it.
Okay. And Lavanya has a question for you.
I have one question. I mean, we learn so much about food and we are all such grown-ups. You know, when we are trying to parent our kids, it's one of the hardest things that I always face with kids of this younger generation. I have kids that are, 6 and 7. So that they don't eat good food because it tastes good. They want to eat food because it looks good. So, I mean, how do you, this is a constant battle every day. They just look at a tomato. There's nothing wrong with the tomato except that it's got a black dot on the top and they're like, oh, this looks yucky. And, it just throws me off because growing up, I never remember eating food looking at how it looked, always ate, eating based on how it tasted.
Yeah. I mean, young kids are challenged, but what you can do is that you have to come up with innovative ways. So make rasam. When you make rasam, instead of, I don't know if I'm assuming you know what rasam. Yeah. So
of course.
Instead of putting tomato in the rasam directly, I usually beat it up in the mixer grinder. That way, you can see it. So that is another way of doing it. So, or you can make it, they like pasta sauce, right? So give them tomato with making homemade pasta sauce. Tomato sauce. It's like that. So we have to come up with an innovative solution. Basically, mothers have to come up with an innovative solution. It's not like, my daughter, I told her, you have to listen to me. You have to know. She says, I know all about that. I don't have to listen to you. They say. So, I mean, so the only way to educate their children is you create a habit. So I kind of knew my younger daughter was really into sweets when she was born. So I didn't expose her to chocolate syrup until she was 1.5 or 2 years old. So it's things like that. So we basically have to change ourselves. So if we are sitting late night watching movie and having butter popcorn, your children is going to develop that habit. And that's what they are going to do as an adult. So the best way to introduce good food to kids is to develop ourselves good habits. They look at us, they're not going to come and cook themselves. We are the one who's cooking. So parents are the one who's shopping and cooking. So if we have good habits, automatically it will trickle through the kids. So we don't have to specially tell them. If we are only Indian diet, and if you are giving only Indian diet, they don't know any better. Of course, they get exposed outside, but it won't be their main diet. Occasionally eating pizza is not end of the world. Occasionally eating a donut is not end of the world. But eating a dozen donut every couple of days for breakfast, or that is your breakfast, then that is a problem. So,
okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
So before, I don't know if anybody else has a question. Vasu has an interesting question. So you might want to answer it in an easy way. I know the answer that you're going to say. Vasu has a question: where to buy the dirt, Lowe's or Home Depot? I told him Farmers Market, but he's not listening.
Yes.
Farmers Market, Vasu. You got the answer.
Bharathi, we really enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Bharathi. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really appreciate your time for this presentation. And if they have any other questions, one more second, Bharathi, I have one thing to say.
All evening, I don't have problems.
Okay. Bharathi's website is mysocoendo.com, which is mysocoendo.com. That's their website. That's for her private practice. She practices with another MD. So please feel free to contact her. Go to the website. It's mysocoendo.com.
Ramki, before we take off, so anybody who has questions who don't want to ask here, you can always email.
Okay, perfect.
Contact
I think I have the email address. Give me one
any
second.
information, anytime you need, you can always contact me. I'll be happy to talk about food all day long.
Okay, 1 second, Bharati. I'll just give them the email address too. It's endodiab911@gmail.com. endodiab911@gmail.com. All right. Yep. I think Vasu has already typed it. So I was going to do that. Okay. Thanks, Vasu. And on the finishing note, next weekend, it's at 4 o'clock. We have speakers from Connecticut and one from Vancouver, Canada. The first topic is going to be on breathing exercise, simple breathing exercise at home. And the second topic on Sunday at 4 is going to be on dizziness and vertigo. So please pass it on to your friends. It will be the same Zoom link. We're just going to use the same link for everyone. Pass it on. And once again, Dr. Bharati's presentation will be posted on Facebook tonight or tomorrow morning. Thank you once again for all your time. And I think the questions also was great today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.